Welcome to Resilience Talk, hosted by Paul Spencer of Second Nature Solutions. Let's dive in.
You've committed a lot of time and a lot of money into your business. Whenever you started it, whether that was 10 years ago, 50 years ago, or even yesterday, you've made the sacrifice and the commitment to build something. And that's what we're talking about in our ownership series is not only have you invested time and money and maybe even pulled money from your savings, maybe even taken a pay cut and you're paying employees or you're getting your services or product off the ground and you're either not getting any money or you're getting very little money as compared to if you just got a job out in the market. And so this is well known, and it's part of the sacrifice, but it's also part of the fun and the reason why we own businesses. And so as an owner and as part of our ownership series, we're trying to get a new angle, a new mindset into what is the purpose of our business. Now we all have a mission and a vision for our business, why we started it. Sometimes it's just to make more money. Sometimes it's because we think we can do it better. And sometimes it's a more holistic view of the world and we want to contribute and serve more in a better way. Regardless of what that is, you still have to have an understanding that you own an asset. And that's the purpose of the ownership series that we've been talking about. So today we're going to be talking about recurring revenue, which is the fuel of the business. And we'll go into some details on that. But just to review, what are the key valuators of how do we appraise the value of your business? There are 8 that I'm going to go through. And again, as you've heard, there can be less, there can be more. There could be different ones if you talk to different people or if you go out and you look on the internet, you ask ChatGPT. The point here is that you need to have a focus of what is my asset and how am I continually adding value into my asset. So we're going to review those real quick. Financial performance, which we've talked about, growth potential, key dependencies, recurring revenue, which is what we're going to talk about today, right to win, corporate structure, key management and leadership, and then owner involvement. So those are the 8 that we're gonna review. Today we're gonna look at recurring revenue, and you can see how all these are intertwined and connected because when we talked about financial performance, right, we were forecasting, being able to demonstrate historical revenue, being able to demonstrate predictable, consistent revenue. And what's the input to that? Well, the input to that is recurring revenue. And really from a buyer's perspective, if we're going to go buy a business, we're going to ask, what is your automatic revenue every month? What's your annual recurring revenue? And what proportion, right? What percentage of your annual revenue or your monthly revenue is based on recurring revenue? How are you collecting this every month? How consistent is it? How reliable is it? I've been with different organizations where we talk about days sold outstanding, right? Which is when we send out an invoice, we have some terms and we may say net 10, net 30, some of you go net 45 even. And really it depends on the type of service that you're providing, the type of clients that you're working with. But really you want to get that as close as possible, meaning your net is, as soon as we sign the ink is dry on the contract, then I get paid, right? That's the ideal. We want to have instant cash flow. Now, is that realistic? Not always, but that's what we strive for. That's our aim. Anyway, as an owner or as an owner, but also as a buyer, we're looking at that days sold outstanding because that gives us a sense of the health of the fuel, which is the cash flow of your business. So some of you out there that I've worked with in the past, you've had days sold outstanding that is in the 200s, in the high 100s. And what does that mean? That means that work that I did 200 days ago, I still haven't gotten paid, right? That doesn't mean that I started a project in February, finished it up in late September, and I still haven't been paid. No, that means I finished my work in February, sent you an invoice, and I haven't done any more work on that particular project or job or whatever that deliverable was. I'm done with it. I've wrapped it up. It's yours, whatever it is, done. And you haven't paid me for over 200 days. This is completely unrealistic. It is poor inventory management, revenue management. And when we're a buyer and we're looking at the health of the company, that is a big warning sign, right? If my average days sold outstanding is more than 90 days, then that's going to reduce the value of your business. All right. So when we're thinking about how do we establish recurring revenue? Well, we just talked about it. We have to collect, right? So our accounts receivable, our process around accounts receivable, we need to focus on it. And I know I've talked about this a million times that it's 9 times out of 10, any business, family-owned business, has been around for decades, doesn't tend to focus much on the accounting side. So the bookkeeper, the accounting person that might be internal probably has the worst office or worst desk location in the building. They just deal with whatever's coming their way and they do the best that they can. But you typically have poor insight as an owner into the flow of what I just described, right? So we need to have a healthy, mature process on the accounting side on accounts receivable. So the other things that we tend to think about are going to be more strategic, and then we can implement those and be more tactile when we get down into there, right? More tactical. So what is recurring revenue? Well, it must demonstrate continuous value, right? It needs to be sticky. If I'm going to charge you $100 a month or $10,000 a month or $1 million a year, you need to demonstrate continuous value, right? And the other thing is it needs to address the pains and needs of the customer, and those pains and needs need to be continual. It's not a one-time medicine. I know people talk about vitamin versus medicine, vitamin versus aspirin. We're not talking about a one-time pain solution and then now you're good. The customer has to be continually experiencing some kind of need, and that is something that would fit into recurring revenue. Another thing that needs to happen on our side as an asset, as our business, is as we scale. So as we have 10 customers and we get to 20 and then we get to 100 and 1,000, my profit should start to increase, not decrease. If I'm losing money as I scale, then my recurring revenue model is not working. Another thing that we talk about when we think about sales, because recurring revenue is a function of sales, it's an input into sales, and it's an output, of course. But it has to be easy to understand and easy to buy for the consumer, right? For the buyer, whatever product and service that we're selling. And so if it's not easy for me to understand, it's very confusing, then I'm highly unlikely to buy it. Easy to buy means that once I decide that I want this, then this goes to car sales, which I recently bought a car, which was pulling teeth. It's so painful. It sucks so bad. Easy to understand. Yeah, I want this car. I want this model. I want these features. Boom, done. Easy to buy? No. No capital, right? It's 6 hours. 6 hours sitting in the dealership waiting for all these things is such a pain in the butt. Is it easy to buy? No. How many times did I seriously consider walking out and saying, I'm not buying this vehicle? 3, maybe 4 times, right? Maybe that averages out to a little more than 1 an hour, a little more than 1 every 2 hours, right? That's not easy to buy. So easy to buy means as soon as I sign, boom, we're done. Simple contract, simple payment terms, we're done. All right, so let's go into the continuous value side. I think it's important to be thinking about what involves stickiness. So we can have consumables, right? This is really helpful when you're going through strategic planning and you're thinking about how do we generate more recurring revenue? And sometimes you have to go outside of what you know, outside of what you do, outside of your own industry. To me, that's what we call divergent thinking. Let's throw a bunch of ideas on the wall that at first glance are like, that's crazy. What does that even look like? That doesn't even make any sense. And when you get divergent thinking, then you can converge, because now you've got lots of things on there and you can take 1, 2, 3, and you're like, oh, that is very interesting. So that's what this part of this process is for. So we think about consumables, right? It's natural to have recurring revenue in consumables. What's consumables? Food, right? How often do you have to buy milk? How often do you have to buy bread, eggs, right? Things that you have around your house, your favorite brands, your favorite foods, those are consumables, and they're recurring revenue, meaning that you're going to buy them if they're things that you enjoy often, right? Another thing is printer, right? Printer ink, that's a consumable. You buy the printer, the hardware. You buy, another great example that just came off the top of my head is the Keurig, right? You buy coffee. You buy a coffee machine. You consume, that's the thing, the hardware that you use to process a consumable. So you may have the filter, the coffee filter. You have the coffee beans, or they're already ground, right? You might have a Keurig with a cup. Those are things that you buy the machine, and then now you have to buy consumables because you're consuming, right? Another one would be fuel, gas, oil for your car, those kinds of things, windshield wipers if we get into auto, right? Those are all consumables. So you can start thinking about, in your business, what are things that are consumable that we can start to create recurring revenue with. Consumption-based, which is utilities, so your electricity, your gas for your home, maybe even your water. On the technology side, anything that's cloud-based, AWS comes to mind, Azure. You might even pay for your Gmail or your Office 365 or Microsoft 365. Those are consumption-based, right? Transactions is also a consumption-based thing, which is credit card fees. Real estate, right? You pay 7%, 6% for your realtor to sell or buy your home. There could be different brokerages, insurance brokerage, right? You pay a fee for some of those things. That's consumption-based. There's operational-based, right? Meaning that our product or our service, say a software, like an ERP system, is a software operational-based system that you pay a reoccurring fee, right? To use that system, there's an implementation fee and then a recurring licensing fee. Long view service-based, which is just what I just talked about. So if you buy an ERP system, you probably pay a recurring maintenance. Maybe there's some kind of warranty. And then there's also probably a management fee, and those can be recurring. You can have product-driven fees. You can have subscription-based fees, like for SaaS-based products, which for me is like a little bit insane that we have to pay $50, $300 a month for some kind of SaaS-based product. I mean, you get into those RP systems and you're talking about millions of dollars every year with high monthly costs. It's what we have today. So I have opinion on that, obviously. Other subscription-based things are just pure access-based. So you think about cable, you think about your internet subscription. That's just access to a network, access to some kind of service. Your cell phone, right? Having a cell phone, access to cell phone network and internet. You have access to data. So LexisNexis comes to mind if you're legal, right? You pay for access into their curated legal systems and information. There's lots of different access-based subscriptions. Even content, like things that are out there on the internet now, you may pay for a Substack subscription. You may pay for a particular podcast. That's access-based. Then you have value-based. Another one that's very interesting is more around financial-based. So you may lease a property. You may lease, like we lease high-end, what is the word? Photocopiers. Thank you. In our offices, right? Those big, super complex copiers machines, those are typically leased. You may have some kind of interest over time for a product that you have. So maybe it's this $1 million and they want to finance it. And so you may not finance it as traditional finance, meaning through a loan, but you may say, all right, instead of paying $1 million this year, we'll charge you $250,000 for the first year, but we'll also add an interest fee for the remaining $750, and then you pay $250 every year for the next 4 years, plus some type of interest, right? There's licensing, which is what I described before. Could be some kind of patent licensing, could be a product or some kind of IP that you have that you can give away or allow others to use it, and they pay you a licensing fee, and then also commissions. So anyway, all of those, 1, 2, or 3 of those you could take because you're not in the consumable business. You're not in food, but maybe you have a product or a service that could be tied to a consumable. And then you can get recurring revenue that way. You guys know what I'm talking about. You guys can figure it out, right? And then when we're thinking about easy to understand, easy to buy, right? One thing to be thinking about with that is that when we're building something that's recurring revenue, and we think about, let's go to the Keurig example. That's a great example. Is the machine takes a Keurig cup, and if you wanted to buy a mini filter and put some grain, right, some ground bean in there, that's not going to work, right? So what it's done is it's created a stickiness around your value for quick, easily consumed coffee. Has a consumable. You have to keep buying the cups. But now over time it's inconvenient for me as the consumer to want to switch, right? Because now I'd have to go buy a new machine, or I'd have to go buy a different traditional percolator type coffee maker, right? And that's money. That costs me money to go do that, right? And so now I'm kind of wedged in, and you don't want to do this in a mean way necessarily, right? But you're trying to create stickiness. And so what you're doing is you're creating a path through with the hardware, the consumable, the end product, and you're putting them into your ecosystem. And as we know with large IT systems, with like Epic, healthcare hospital system, ERP systems, is once you own those, it's really hard to get out of that ecosystem and switch to somebody else. So anyway, that's some of the things that we use to get to recurring revenue. So these are obvious things coming up, which is these can't be one-time value, right? You can't just say, you can have these in your business, but if you're looking to build recurring revenue, if your business is based on one-time projects with one particular customer, and then you're done with that customer, you're done with that project, and now you got to find another customer for another project, that is not a model that's going to create lots of value for your asset, right? A buyer is not going to add a lot of value into that type of model, right? And as you grow with your recurring model, I talked about this already, is you don't want it to be more costly, meaning I need to add more overhead, I need to have more equipment in order to scale. I want it to, as I go exponential with my growth, I also want my profit to also increase as that's going, all around the recurring revenue.